Yeah, I think it's good just to like kind of talk about like things that you and I have talked about before getting where we are now.
Yeah.
You know, like how
it started.
How did it start? If I were to, I feel like if I were to ask you how it started, it's gonna be a different answer than me, slightly.
Yeah. Should we go back how we met and how this kind of came into play for a long time? So. Yeah, it all started with Cost Saver when I had the roofing company a few years back.
Yeah.
How'd that even happen? We were introduced somehow, some way, and I was looking for somebody to shoot some content and video, and you and I connected, and you started shooting some stuff for me, and then I built this house, and I think that's when we really connected.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think even like a little bit before that, I think when I realized that we were gonna like connect, I think was when, and I told you this too, it was like October 1st or 2nd, whenever the day that you brought me out here.
Yep.
When it was still a cornfield.
Yep. Back in October.
In October last year, so coming up on a year. And you kind of told me, you know, like this is what I'm doing.
Yep.
And then this was before you had sold Cost Saver.
Yep.
So you kind of told me like, hey, don't tell anyone yet. So it was kind of cool to like have a little bit of insight before. And I was like, well, what's he doing? Like, I know he's doing something big.
Yep.
And so yeah, talk a little bit about, you know, that. Because it's been a crazy transition.
It's been a crazy
for
transition. I went from selling the company to building out this place, which has been my life for the last year. You know, and selling, you know, most of my real estate off just to kind of focus on life, and this, you know, this kind of evolved, and this is exactly what, you know, is up my alley, is talking to business owners, and you know, that's what led us here, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like, I've like always admired what you've done.
Yeah.
And I think like I made it a point to make sure, and I told Katie this like well before like we kind of got together, and I was like, I want to work with Blake.
Yeah.
Like, and I knew that it was going to be tough just because like you're very busy, and like even like when I would come and shoot with you, I'd try to like chop it up with you a little bit, and like there's always so much going on, and that's, any business owner knows that. So this is a perfect example for any business owner.
Right.
And then honestly, it came down to Blake texted me on a Friday, and I want to say it was probably 2:00, and you were like, hey, do you want to go to the lake? I'm like, yeah, when? You're like, at 5. At 5 o'clock. In my head, I'm like, I'm a business owner. I had stuff I had to do.
And we didn't really have a relationship at that time. We were just kind of, it was always business. It was always, you know, you shot content for me, and then out of nowhere, I was like, I'm going to hit Tony up.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I was like, I might have even texted you. I said, are you sure this is the right Tony?
Yeah.
But like, had it been anybody else, I think I told you this too, had it been anybody else that asked me, I would have said there's absolutely no way. But I told Katie, I said, this is a business opportunity. This is a chance for me to pick Blake's brain, and like there's nothing bad that's going to come out of it, you know?
Right.
So I feel like, and I knew that this was really the only opportunity that you and I could get away from work at the same time.
Yep.
So I was like, we might not have this opportunity like, in 5 years, you know? So I think that was where the seed was planted, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, at least, I feel like that was like a big connection point for us. And
it was.
And
we got to really figure each other out on that trip, and kind of, you know, I got to listen to what you wanted to do, and you heard what I wanted to do, and I just feel like everything happened for a reason. This just came together you know, the way it did. And I mean, this just happened so quick that, you know, we talked about this, and 4 or 5 days later, we're now wrapping up, you know,
literally
a bus.
Yeah, I think we had the logo done like 2 days after we got back from the trip, and like had it touched up, and no, I think that was cool too, because out of all of it, I think we both had the same vision, just like different roads to get to that vision. And I think bringing those together is like how this came about.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I feel like if I would have talked to any other person, like they wouldn't have seen it the same way that you've seen it. You know, I mean, it's kind of crazy, you know, like, hey, I want to start a podcast on the go, or we want to start a podcast on the go. You tell it to anybody, they're going to be like, all right, dude, you're crazy. How many podcasts are there?
Right.
But how are we going to be different? I mean, you know.
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like we're going to be different because, you know, it's already hard enough to try to call up a business owner and say, hey, can you come to our studio and do this podcast? And, you know, with me being a business owner, honestly, if you called me to find an hour out of my day to drive alone and then sit down for another hour and do a podcast. It's just probably not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
And that's kind of the idea behind this is we thought that, it'd be really cool to not only showcase the business owner, but to roll up and see them in action and see what they're actually doing. And, like I said, that this has always been something that, talking to business owners has always been a passion of mine, and getting to understand how they do it, because then I try to go do it better than them. And it's, that's just, when you had texted me about the podcast and we had the sprinter, and it was like, man, this is it. This is going to be perfect. Exactly. Because again, as a business owner, if you call me and say, hey, can I come to your business for 15, 20 minutes and just have a conversation with you?
It's not going to happen.
And showcase your business, I'd be more apt to that.
Yeah.
You coming. So, yeah, that was kind of the theory behind it. So
I think it's a great idea. I think there's endless opportunities, and you and I both love to network.
Yes.
And I think that's like a big reason we got into this. Like you said, you want to talk to as many business owners. And like I always tell everybody, if you're not learning something every day, then like, what are you doing?
Right.
I mean, like, and there's so much more that we can learn, especially like, as business owners, like there's something new every day. There's something new. Like we were supposed to start this podcast an hour ago, but he had stuff going on. I had, I think being able to like kind of talk to different business owners and see how they run their business, see how they, get through the lows, get through the highs, and, balance everything out. I think it's just going to be a really cool opportunity for us to hear those stories and like you said, you love hearing those stories. And like, I think it's cool to be able to showcase those stories for other people to see as well. So,
and like you said, Tony, it's there's so many people that want to be entrepreneurs and, go out and chase their dream and start their own business, but it's not cut out for everybody.
It's not.
And, what a lot of these people get to see is they get to see these business owners, living the high life on these, on these vacations and, with their kids and their family. But in reality, like that's just a glimpse, and that's not really what a business owner is. It's, the countless nights where I physically didn't go to bed, or, the worrying, about payroll to get, to make it when I started. It's just, it takes a lot as a business owner. And I don't think that, people really realize what it takes. And so it's so cool to be able to, go and in this podcast and let people hear these stories of the CEOs and the owners of these big companies. And I think it's going to really bring vision to other successful entrepreneurs, and they're going to get to see the highs and the lows
and the reality of it.
And the reality of it. Yeah. And
because that's really what I want to get into is like, I want to hear about the down and dirty, like those lows. I want to hear about, because I mean, there's been so many times I feel like with every business owner where they're like, I can't do this. Right. Like I want to know about that point where you were like, do I give up, or you kept going and then you hit, you went over that bridge.
Yep.
Because I mean, there is a lot of highs, but there's usually more lows.
There's usually more lows than there is highs.
And it's all about figuring out how to pivot and, problem solve at the end of the day.
Yep.
So I think,
I mean, same thing with your story though. You were working at a restaurant. And, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been working in restaurants since I was 19, and then started doing photography. But like even like before the photography, I was working 2 restaurants. So I'd work at B-Dubs, work 40 hours there, then 40 hours at Max. And then I picked up the camera probably 7 or 8 years ago, kind of as a hobby, honestly, and like. I always loved like a little bit of creativity. I used to do music and stuff, and I honestly, like, someone asked me, hey, can you shoot a wedding? I never shot a wedding.
Right.
But I was like, yeah, sure. Like I could. And like, it cost, it was the gimbal that I needed to like basically, stabilize the camera was like $650. And I told them, I was like, I'll shoot it for $850. So like it paid for the gimbal and whatever. And after that, dude, I just started like kind of like picking up wedding gigs. And then, so I'm still working full time at the job. And then, it just kind of slowly went back to like four nights a week at the bar, and 3 nights a week. And then finally went full time with the photography almost a year ago.
Wow.
And I was on the fence for a while, and just kind of I was worried, but I wasn't worried. You know that just
Right.
you know initial anxiety, but honestly, it was the best decision. And honestly, the way God works is wild because it was like I finally told myself it was, and I remember it was in October. I said, I'm done. This is my last year.
Yeah.
So I gave myself 2 months. I even told my employer, I was like, hey, giving you guys a 2-month notice just because I've been here for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to just like dip on you guys. And as soon as I made that decision, I picked up like 6 clients that same week. Like,
wow.
And that's just how God works. And like, you know, you what you put in is what you're gonna get out.
Yep.
Especially, I feel like the more positive you put out, the more positive comes at the end of the day. But yeah, and like, it's been growing ever since.
Yeah.
So. I want to know a little bit about, you know, Cost Saver, especially since I met you. When I met you, you were running Cost Saver.
Yep.
And then obviously, you know, you sold, I think we met probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then you sold Cost Saver. We're coming up on a year. Tell me a little bit about Cost Saver, where it started, and then when you sold it, you know, where'd you get it to you know, at that point?
Yeah, so I think it was a little beyond Cost Saver. So backstory, I had a landscaping company that I started mowing my neighbor's yard when I was 13. She was going back and forth to Chicago, and so I was mowing their yard, and you know, one thing led to the next neighbor wanted me to cut the next one, and now I got a buddy helping me. We're in high school, and I leave home at 16, and him and I were, you know, really just mowing and doing a bunch of landscaping, and you know, I grew that business, and I sold that business when I was 20, and after I sold that one, I went into the restaurant industry with a partner that didn't work out for me. And so after that, I left and I went to Arkansas with my brother. Kind of lost everything that I had just built my entire childhood up.
Yeah.
And so I went to Arkansas to flip a house with my brother. And he's got a couple businesses himself. And so I was kind of helping him out. And I came back to Cincinnati, and my dad had started Cost Saver back in the 90s and with a partner. And I was always, as I was doing landscaping, I would recommend customers to him, and I would see these sales guys pull up in, you know, BMWs and Mercedes and Lexuses, and you know, so I told my dad, I was like, well, you know, forget giving these leads to your sales guys. Teach me how to do this.
Yeah.
And so I would start selling, you know, roofs on the side and, you know, getting big checks, and, you know, windows and siding and gutters. And throughout that, I always, you know, my dad would always take me to, you know, sales leads when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And so, I mean, I was been going around this forever. And so when I came back from Arkansas, I actually started a excavation company with another friend of mine. And he ended up buying me out about 6 months in. And at that time, I said, you know, my dad kept telling me that he wanted to retire. Well, that's why I never literally took initiative in the business, because I always wanted to do my own thing. And I knew my dad wasn't going to retire because he's just like me, can't sit still. And so I finally said, you know what, I want to be a police officer. And I've always had a passion for police officers and firefighters. And so I went to the police academy, and while doing that, I started working at Cost Saver. And when I was working there, you know, I really enjoyed it, really liked it, liked the people. And then the George Floyd stuff happened, and that made me realize how dangerous law enforcement really is. And throughout going to the academy, as well as riding with the sheriff's office all the time, because that was my favorite thing to do, I got to really learn a lot about cops and their lives. And so while I'm doing this, I'm also working at Cost Saver, and I'm recruiting these police officers to work part-time, because now they see me making these checks, and I'm out buying boats and four-wheelers and all this stuff, and these cops are like, how are you doing this? So I recruited, you know, quite a few people from the sheriff's office. And finally, my dad came to me when this George Floyd stuff happened and was like, look, you either drop out or you don't have a job. Like, I don't want you being a cop. And he goes, I'll retire. And I'm like, okay. Right before COVID hit, like a week before COVID hit, my dad retired and I bought the company from him. And, we had an agreement set up for, I'd pay him over X amount of years. And man, the first thing I did is I fired everybody as soon as I did it. I got in there and I fired just about everybody that he had, and I completely started over. And here's my dad like, what are you doing? You owe me all this money, and you just fired everybody that I've had for 15 years,
right?
20 years, office manager, 25 years. I completely started over. I hired all new people, completely started the business over. And when I did that, I paid my dad off in under 2 years, well before what I was supposed to.
Yeah.
And I grew the business tremendously. Year after year, I was doubling it. And my intent, my heart was never in it. I did like to help people. And that's where hiring these police officers, I would get guys that, were living in their parents' basement, $30,000 in credit card debt. And I was turning them around and they were buying, $500,000 houses. And I hired a guy that was living at a halfway house and another guy that was living under a bridge, to making $300,000 a year. I was changing these people's lives. So throughout doing that, that was my why. I was getting up and that's what I grew a passion for, was watching these people's lives turn around.
Right.
And it's not just about money or watching them buy stuff either. It's just about the freedom and the happiness that it was bringing to these people. Especially police officers, because police officers, they work like slaves, and
they're underpaid. Yeah.
And so, after doing that, and paying dad off, and him walking away, and growing this business year after year, well, my intent was to sell this. Was always my intent. Not this soon, but I had, throughout all these business connections and meeting people, I had came across a gentleman who's in a private equity firm, and he had asked me about selling, and while I was building Cost Saver up, I also was introduced to a gentleman through my marketing guy who's actually my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law introduced me to another guy named Robert, and I hired him as my fractional CFO. And I'll never forget, the first thing he asked me is, what can I do for you? And what I told him is, get me to real estate as fast as you can get me to real estate, because that's always been my passion. Yeah. Within 90 days, him and I are closing, him and the brother-in-law were closing on a multi-million-dollar property together. And so I was building real estate up through while I was at Cost Saver. And once I, got this offer to sell, I sold the business. And
so it wasn't as simple as that.
It wasn't as simple as that.
So tell me about that. Tell me about, from the day you got the offer.
Yep.
How long did it take you to finally decide? And not only how long, what was going through your head, or what really kind of came down on you and said, this is the right decision?
Yeah. It's a good question. So, nobody's going to believe me when I say this, but the agreement was, if I sell the business, you got to close in 30 days. And that's just unheard of in an acquisition, in a transaction like that, especially that size. We did it in 30 days. And it was October 1st, 2024. And man, the night before that, me, my counsel, CFO, my CPA firm, were all on the phone at midnight. And their attorneys who are out in New York were bouncing back and forth. And it was 3 a.m. and we got the clear to close. And man, we didn't think we were going to close. And when we went through this, you got to keep in mind, I had all my employees knowing that I'm selling. And I'm freaking out now, because October 1st is tomorrow. And if we don't close, this is a problem, right? Because my employees are already saying pretty much, see you later. Yeah. And so, we got down to the wire, and I think it was about 3 a.m. and we got the clear to close from their attorneys. Most transactions like this take 6 months, but I think the way I structured this and set up I invested heavily back into the business, and through doing that was hiring a good CPA firm and hiring Robert. He really was my lifeline for that business. And I give a lot of credit to him, because he deserves it. He helped me do that. So yeah, it was about 30 days. And why I did it, I knew the timing was right. I feel like, God's placed me at different times to do different things. And look where we are here now, because if I was running Cost Saver right now, I wouldn't be sitting here.
No.
You know, my heart and soul was in building that business.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I was going to sell it in 2026. 2027 was my goal.
Yeah.
But I was never around, and that's all I was focused on.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I get that.
You know, look where we're at.
Yeah. And you haven't even really, I mean, you've been so, since pretty much that day, you've been so wrapped up in building this place that you haven't even like really, not to say that you haven't been able to enjoy the time off,
right?
Which you haven't really had any time off,
right?
You know, but I'm ready for that.
So in September of 2024 is when I found this land, and this was prior to selling and prior to knowing to selling, and you know, I pretty much sold October 1st, and I went straight at this. And so I never got time off.
No.
And the whole intent of selling the business was, I've got a family now, and I've got a little girl, and I've got a wife, and I wanted to focus on them and do my real estate stuff. And man, it's been go since I sold.
Yeah.
So
that's how we like it, though. Go.
Yep.
That's all we know, baby.
That's all we know. That's it. So one thing with the podcast that I would say, like, for our why is, at least for me, is two things. Like, share the story, which I like that. Share the story.
Yeah.
To people, and also to give back to the community. And I think that's why, you know, God's got me here is to give back and grow this thing, and not just, you know, financially, but you know, everything.
Yeah.
So
no, I think that's good. I think they, like, our whys kind of align a little bit in different ways. I think at the end of the day, I would love to be able to spread as much positivity as possible, and if I can through this, then that I'm going to utilize as much as I can, you know. And I don't think either one of us are the type to you know, spread negativity through this, you know.
Right.
Like, I feel like, so with any type of energy that we have through this, just, you know, making an impact with that, I think that would be like a good why we're doing this. And I think that I don't even, I keep saying I think, but it's to the point, and I think you and I are both on the same page with this. We have so much faith.
Yeah, we do. We really do. What's about to happen
right here.
Yeah.
That it's not even like, there has not been a single second guess of what we have going on, and which is, you know, it's kind of crazy, because anytime you start a business, you know, you've done it for plenty. It's crazy getting into it, because you're like, there's so many emotions, and like, this is the one thing I'm just like,
I'm not worried. I'm not scared. I know it's gonna work. I got, you know, it's just this is
in the most humble way that we can say that,
for sure.
Like, not even in like a not even in like, it's just a higher power that's kind of put us where we are right now.
Yep.
And it's exciting. I'm excited to share with you guys what we have in the works. I mean, we've been busy behind the scenes, and it's going to be even busier with the curtains open.
Yes.
So just stay tuned.
Yes.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. You're going to probably see us everywhere.
You're going to see a lot of good content, a lot of good business owners, CEOs. And
what'd you just say about the stories? Say that again.
Which one?
What'd you say about the stories? It was a little tagline. You said something about share your story. What'd you say?
And I said I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's on camera. I want to go back to it, because I like that too.
It was good though. It was something about sharing stories. I like that, because that's like, you know, we're like a rolling library. We're just sharing stories.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And just bringing light to whatever we can.
And we want to empower other entrepreneurs as well.
Oh yeah,
too,
for sure.
know?
And that's another thing too. I guess we didn't even touch on that at all. Like, there's going to be a lot of beneficial things out of this for, you know, any business that works with us, and you know, I mean, let's be honest, everything's video now. That, you know, it's essential to have like video marketing, or, you know, network. So this is a good way for business owners to network and you know, tell their stories. And,
Yep.
So, and then hopefully we can be a part of, you know, a successful story. You know, 6 months from now, we would love to,
somebody saw our podcast.
Like, hey, we would love for like a business owner that we had on the podcast say, hey, you guys, you know, you ramped up my business just from that one, you know, that 30 minutes you spent with us. Like, that right there is it's going to hit right here.
Yes.
And that's where it's going to really, it's going to feel good. It's going to feel good for sure.
Yes.
So I'm excited.
Yes.